Prime Minister, I mean, clearly, people of Britain were waking up to front pages and wondering how this evil man slipped through the security net. How did that happen?
Well, obviously, the job that the police and the security services are doing on a day-to-day basis is working up and from all sources, getting intelligence about plots being planned. And I understand that obviously they've identified two of the individuals who were responsible for the horrific attack that took place at London Bridge. But as I understand it, they've said that they had no intelligence that an attack was being planned. What we need to do now, of course, is recognise that as the threat evolves, we need to ensure that we're adapting our response to meet that evolving threat. So that's why I will look at giving more powers to the police and the security service, longer sentences for terrorist-related offences, dealing with this issue of the internet and ensuring there's no safe space online for terrorists, and dealing with extremism online as well. I think all of these are important.
Just must refer you to the Foreign Secretary's words just a few moments ago. He said people are looking at the front pages. How on earth can we have let this guy or possibly more through the net? What happened? How can he possibly be on a Channel 4 programme then committing atrocities like this? Is the Foreign Secretary right about that?
Well, I absolutely recognise people's concerns. We want to stop attacks from taking place. We want to identify those who are seeking to do us harm and stop them from doing that harm. Over the last 3 months, we've had 3 horrific, terrible attacks in the United Kingdom. We've also seen the police and security services foiling 5 other potential attacks. What we need to do now is to see how the threat is evolving, and it is evolving. We're seeing terrorism breeding terrorism. We've seen that tempo of attack over the last 3 months. We need to ask how we need to adapt our response to ensure that we can prevent these in the future.
There's an issue of adapting the response, but there's an issue of record, and it is the Foreign Secretary himself who said that questions need to be answered by MI5 and the police. I can't answer those questions now. Can you answer those questions?
The MI5 and the police have already said, after the Manchester attack, that they would be looking and reviewing how they dealt with that, and I would expect them to do exactly the same in relation to London Bridge. What government needs to do, and what the government that comes in after Thursday's election needs to be willing to do, is to give more powers to the police and the security service when they need them, needs to deal with this issue of terrorism and extremism online, and also needs to be able to call out and deal with extremism here in the United Kingdom.
Clearly the issue of police cuts has been raised. You've recognised that police numbers are down on when you became Home Secretary, and you've recognised also that armed police were down, and you've changed that now, and now they're going up again. Do you have any regrets over those cuts, and do you feel that they might have contributed? In this case, the community reported this man. What happened? Couldn't cuts have had a role in this man not being brought to book?
Well, we've protected the counter-terrorism policing budgets. We have funded an uplift in armed policing, and we have funded our 3 agencies, MI5, MI6 and GCHQ. They will have the money to employ 1,900 more officers. But it's also about the powers that we've given to them. I increased the powers for the Police and Security Service when I was Home Secretary. I think that was the right thing to do. We now need to look at how we need to deal with those powers, increase those powers further for our police and security services for dealing with these issues. We always have to look at the threat. As the threat evolves, we need to look at how we need to adapt our response to that threat. It's exactly what I'm committed to doing. But the voters who are going to the polls on Thursday will have to ask themselves, who do they think has the commitment, who can they trust to actually say, we need to do this. We need to deal not just with the terrorists. Of course we need to deal with the terrorists. We need to stop these attacks from taking place. But we also need to deal with extremism in our country, and we've been too tolerant of it in the past.
It does seem like members of your government want to blame the police, blame MI5, blame Jeremy Corbyn, blame anything but the record of your government.
The person responsible for a terrorist attack is the terrorist. What we need to do, what the police and the security services are doing, is working day in and day out, finding intelligence from all sources to ensure that they're able to identify when people are seeking to do us harm. We want to ensure they have the powers to be able to do that and to take the decisions necessary to stop people from attacking us. But we also need to ensure that we are dealing in this country with extremism. We have been too tolerant in the past. As Home Secretary, I published a counter-extremism strategy. I want to see people across this country recognising that the extremists are trying to divide us and extremism can lead to violence.
You promised difficult and embarrassing conversations with no tolerance of this intolerance. But what about the Saudis and this report that isn't being released? Amber Rudd has just said we've managed to reduce the funding and the links between the Saudis and groups like Islamic State. Have we? Do you recognise tough conversations required with Gulf nations?
Tough conversations are required over this whole issue of financing of the terrorists and the financing of extremism.
With foreign countries, with some of our allies.
We need to have tough conversations with whoever we need to have those conversations with.
You called yourself a difficult woman in relation to the Brexit talks. Are you difficult as regards the Saudis? Are you difficult as regards to Donald Trump insulting the Mayor of London at a very sensitive time?
I've been very clear that what Donald Trump has said about the Mayor of London is wrong. We've worked with Sadiq Khan in responding to this attack. He has been at the 2 Cobra meetings that I've chaired, the government's emergency committee, ensuring that central government and the Mayor of London and City Hall are working together to get London back up and running and people able to carry on leading their lives as usual. So I'm very clear about that.